Welcome to SALTovation. The SALTovation Show is a podcast series featuring the leading voices in SALT, where we talk about the issues and strategies to help you make sense of state and local tax. Well, and that's interesting, and I'm going to be vulnerable for a minute. So I'm coming up on 20 years experience, and I remember because I was heavily involved in recruiting when I was in Big Four, and even for me, I have to turn my brain off to say like, oh, well, that person just doesn't want to work hard because they're looking for an out.
Yeah.
Immediately, they're trying to figure out how they can take vacation or how they can, not work, right? And I forget that I'm not the age that my brain thinks I am sometimes. But even that's a shift, and I'm sure is that like a hard conversation that's, that people are having a hard time getting over that hump. And it's like, that doesn't mean that people don't want to work hard. The just culture in general has shifted to such that people want a work-life balance. Like I slept in the office at 24 years old.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of 24-year-olds that don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And still in the back of my head, my training says that's because they're not in it. They don't want to work. Like,
yeah,
I billed 18 hours in a cycle. I mean, it was insane. I was working on a job down in Texas. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is unsustainable. And that was highly expected.
All right. Now I want you to both, and by the way, we've all said it. I mean, I said the same thing. Oh my gosh. Don't they even know how to work anymore? But think about all of the people listening to this podcast right now. And think about them and their brains as they hear that. Does it attract them to the accounting profession?
No.
Yeah. What they're thinking is, I'm going to try to find something else. I think, I wish I've said this before. I'll say it again. Someday that somebody in Hollywood's going to listen to me. We need a Grey's Anatomy for accounting, because when Grey's Anatomy came out, or when CSI came out, the number of people that went into wanted to be a doctor or a nurse, or the people that wanted to be a forensic scientist, like doubled it all across the nation, right? We do not have a sexy profession. People come out and what they think is, we're going to look at the numbers. I went into accounting because I'm really good at math. Well, guess what? What I want to tell them in high school is, do you like people? Do you like solving problems? Are you a problem solver? Are you somebody who likes to be a servant leader? In other words, not somebody who's in the back office, but somebody who really sits down with a small business owner and helps them to really make their business better. And I mean, really come up with a list of why it is so important to have a good accountant with you. The best example I have is I have a really good friend whose daughter was thinking about going into accounting. And we went to dinner one night with them. As we're sitting there, she said, "Oh, you work with accountants." She said, "So, I mean, really, do they just kind of sit in the back office and like do taxes?" And I said, "Actually, no." I said, "Let me tell you a little story." And I told her the story about a woman that I knew. Her husband had passed away. She gathered her think tank around her to help her figure out what to do with their business, figure out how in the world to do their life insurance. Oh my gosh, what are the bills I'm going to pay? I'm going to get life insurance. How am I going to get that without paying half of it out in tax? And so she took her lawyer and her accountant, and she sat down with them and helped figure out a plan. And I said, those two individuals helped her to recreate her life and to save her business and to put her so that she felt confident. And I said, the reason they could do that is because they had a deep relationship with her. They've known her there for the whole time she was doing business. And this young lady, as I was telling her, and it was a long story, I told her the whole story. And afterwards she goes, "I would love to do that." And I said, then you need to go into accounting. Now, some of it isn't that glamorous, right? But you're going to save people's lives.
And money. Money. Understand how money is made, where it is spent, why you are profitable.
Let me just tell you, though, I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem, though. Now, I'm not going to say every young person out there doesn't care about money, but they don't care about money as much as they do about a quality life.
Well, understanding how money is made in this world, though, is what I'm saying. Like, how did that product become successful? What do they do with that? how do they market it? Where do they spend their money? So it's not just about how you're going to make money, but how business makes money,
Yep.
how it grows, how it builds process, how it evolves. It all takes money.
Yeah.
Nobody's handing you money. Even if you have equity funding, you got to pay it back. You got to account for it. So where do you spend? What's the wisest use of whatever you have, your resources, to build that next thing, to get that next customer, to tell someone your story, to hire a good person? You have to have enough means to do that. And so it's not just about your own money.
Yeah.
It's about how money is made in the world. I mean, it's amazing. And brands are built.
I agree with that. But I also think our firms today have to really tune into what the next generation or next couple of generations is, what's important to them. And I will tell you, so one of the things that I thought was hilarious one time, we teach leadership training sometimes. And one of the classes I had the managing partner come in and do, talk about his climb, right? How'd you get started? When did you become partner? Why is it so important? And he went on and on about the stuff that he had, right? So he said, being a partner affords me the ability to pay for my children's college, but I drive a cool car and I have a really great house and I, go on vacations. And so he's talking about all that. When he left the room, I said, so how is that? Does that inspire any of the rest of you to want to be a partner? Not one person raised their hand, not one. And I said, okay, so I'm curious, why? And they said, they said, he drives a cool car. We don't care. He has a big house. That just seems overwhelming to me. They're going through all this. I said, okay, so let me ask you a question. What's important to you? What is it that you would want to use money for? I mean, if you were afforded the ability to have the money that he has, I don't care about the number. What would you do with it? And they started talking about community service. And they started talking about setting up philanthropies. And they started saying, which was a really cool group of people. And I said, okay, so how are you going to get the money to do that? Because you can create your own life, but the cash helps you make that life the way you want it to be. And you can create that anywhere you want. And if you look at, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that very top one is about giving back. And I told them, I said, my gosh, you guys, you're already thinking at the level 5 leadership, but you can't be a level 5 leader unless you go through all of the other things. And the money that you could make in this profession, you could get that, but you have to want to work hard to get there. And so then but it opened up doors to talk about other things, right? I really think we have to meet them where they're at. We cannot impose our life and how we lived our life on them. We have to figure out what they want, figure out where they're at, and then we have to go to them. I don't think it's going to go the other way around. For all of us sitting here right now, we did what they told us to do, right? When they said work 60 hours this week, you work 60 hours. I mean, I don't even remember I don't even remember like griping about it. That was just the way it was. Maybe they're smarter than we are. Maybe.
No, I didn't. I hated it. That's why I left the regular compliance. I'm like, I don't want to work weekends. I don't want to work Labor Day. And I don't want to be working during ski season every weekend and evening. And I'm like, I am not going to work like this, whatever they say, mandatory Saturday baloney. I'm going to get all my hours during the work week, so I have free time on the weekend to relax. And I was definitely a game changer, which is why I'm my own firm, because I don't really want to live by those rules. I'm a little bit of that's not the right thing. And I remember never leaving public accounting, despite having multiple job offers in industry, to say, I don't want 2 weeks of vacation. I have 32 days. I have people who can do what I do. So I actually can leave, and I know that the ship won't fall, gain water, because they can replicate what I'm doing and serve my client in the meantime. So I'm not the one-stop shop. And if you go to industry, you have a JOB and you're the only one who does it, and they need you. So you can't take time off. And then when you do, you got to pay back. So if you don't have duplicative redundancy in teaming, then you cannot have autonomy and flexibility and freedom. And so I would think, I'm taking a phone call on the ski slopes because I didn't have meetings all day, but I had this one. I'm going to go do this thing. I'll make up my time at another time, and I'm going to call on the ski slopes. I think that's pretty cool. I'm still providing value to my customer, and I'm still, being supportive. But that was not okay.
Well, and we've probably like touched on all of this, but for kind of our listeners and without giving away your secrets, what would you say are the three most common themes that CPAs struggle with?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this question, and it was hard to just narrow it down to three, I
Fair.
will say. But
That's okay.
I'm going to start the first one with change. I think one of the most common things we hear when we go to any firm and when we talk to any firm is that they're grappling with so much change out there and they don't even know where to start. And they're not real good at it, right? And I'm not sure anybody in the world is great at change, but really being able to lead through change. And I'll go back to COVID because that's a recent thing that happened. You could really see the difference in the firms that were able to make the shift and the change from working completely in the office to working everybody outside the office. For those leaders that said, we're going to make this happen and we're going to do this effectively, and they just made it happen. I mean, I remember, and Teams is the other one that, everybody was saying, oh, we can't change to Teams until, we'll have a year rollout. And I watched as a firm one time, right during COVID, they said, we're going to roll out Teams this week. And I said, I thought that was like a year plan. And they said, yeah, we're going to do it this week. And it was done in a week instead of a year. I had another firm who said, I just sent everybody home and we're just all going to work from home. We'll figure it out as we go. You could tell that was great leadership and they were able to change. I also saw where if a leader doesn't lead, there's a problem. I have a firm that I work with still to this day where the managing partners, a pretty large firm, said, everybody go home and work. I'll be right here. And so he didn't work from home. He stayed in the office. And what happened was, as soon as people felt like they could trickle back in, they were worried because they said, well, if he's sitting in the office, I better sit in the office too, so that he knows that I'm all in. And they had people start trickling back in. And within a month or two, they were all back in the office again. And so I think change is probably the first thing I would say that's kind of a most common theme of CPA firms and what they're grappling with, and change in everything from talent to growth to where you work to everything. The second one is I think it is they're having a hard time with spreading the decision making and the power to a wider population in the firm. It used to
That would be control. Control.
Yeah, control would be a good word.
That's the right word?
Judy,
Yeah.
does this resonate with you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I have controlling issues. Control issues.
But I think that is going to be a big issue because the more that we're going into advisory and consulting work, the more that we're going to take young people and not have to train them on the more mundane things that we used to do. And we're going to raise them up and have them doing review and client work faster. I think we're going to have to let go of some of the power and some of the decision making and let them make some mistakes as they go. And by the way, so did we. I mean, most of the things that I've learned in my life that really stick are the mistakes I made that I had to figure out and change. So I think that decision making and power, being able to spread that out among all levels and all areas of the firm is important. And my third thing is I feel like a lot of firms believe that if they just get the right technology, it'll make everything right in their firm. Everything will be fine if we just get the right technology. And the reality is that technology is just the vessel that will help get you there. It's the people and the processes and the change agents that are really going to make the difference. Because I can put the best technology in your firm today, and if people don't use it right and they don't make the processes right and we don't teach them right and they don't train them right.
You just wrote a big check and threw it out the window.
Exactly. You wrote a big check for absolutely nothing. And so
we've been through that many a time with the ERP change and just not thinking things through. And I can't tell you how many times I advised people on ERP changes when I was at the Big Four, adding in this and that, and then not having the right conversations, being stressed out. Got to pull the trigger. I'm like, you really didn't take the time to think about what that meant for you before you made that decision. And now you're in and you're stuck. So there is a little bit of you got to make a decision, but some of it's like, we didn't take the time to step back, just take a step forward. And I think we struggle with that, having the capacity Yeah, no, it's a really interesting issue. And I also think technology has sold us a bill of goods. You don't know how it's built. You don't know the secret stuff. I mean, I don't know if you've just been through the Teams update, but I have gotten conflicting information from our IT people about new teams, old teams, this working, that working. I've had huge problems with it where they're like, don't use it, use it. Okay, just use it. So I'm not getting consistent messaging because they're like, it's being updated. We don't know what the nuances are until we experience them. We get the feedback because we assimilate all that data because we're an IT helpline and we get it from everybody, every user, and everybody's a little bit unique. And so SaaS is iterative. So it's not a fail-safe solution ever. And if you don't know what's behind the curtain, you don't really know why it doesn't work. So when you hit something, it goes, chick.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you this with state taxes, like everybody's got a different portal and it's email centric. Why would you do that? People leave. People don't have their emails anymore. Like nobody thinks that. Two-factor authentication related to someone's cell phone. They're not with the company anymore. I mean, there's some things that are just so dumb from a technological perspective that they're actually a hindrance.
Well, and from a process perspective, ideally, is it kind of the way to think about it? It's like, okay, if you have a good process, technology is going to enhance that. But if you rip the technology away, you're still able to do what you're trying to accomplish.
Yep.
That the technology shouldn't drive the process. The process should be well established, and you're going to pick the technology in order to enhance what you need to do to get done.
Absolutely. We have two women in our company who are process improvement specialists. Ariana Campbell, who is a shareholder, Amanda Wilkie, who is a consultant, and both of them are brilliant at going in and ripping apart a process and putting it back together so that there's one-way workflow, so you get past all of the hiccups that are along the way. They make sure that their people are well trained on that. And then they'll talk about, okay, now that you've got this workflow the way you want it, now let's talk about how you're going to use the technology to drive that and make sure it's right. Their number one issue when they go in to work with a firm is the inability for some of the people that are using the process to use the process. It has nothing to do with technology. It has everything to do with they put in, first in, first out for tax returns, right? And they have that partner that just refuses to do it and goes and picks the things out of the pile that they want. When I say the pile, it can be in the technology, right? But they don't follow the process. And so it is a people problem, not a process, even a process problem or a technology problem. It's a people problem. And you have to have a real commitment by the leaders in the firm first. We're going to develop a process. We're going to create one that's going to work well, that's going to make us efficient and effective at what we do. And we're going to put accountability in to make sure everybody follows the process. And if they don't do that, we can almost tell them day one, this is going to be great or this is going to be terrible, because you can see what the attitudes of the people are. So I think that's an interesting comment, but I do think processes, and by the way, I think processes, I was talking to a firm yesterday and they said, well, we've made a list of all of our processes that we need to fix. And I think we're at like 120. They went through every department and everything that they do, and they made a list of all of the processes. And I went, okay, well, we can't fix 128, but what's the one that is most likely to give you the most, like if you could fix that one process, you would gain more hours and you would gain more capacity back.
Sounds like they're striving for perfection. It's like we have to have everything on one list, account for all scenarios in order to do anything. So they're stuck in a perfection rut.
Yep.
And they can't, it's like good
Which
enough.
Which is kind of a little bit of an accountant. If you think about it, debit and credit needs balance. It's the way people think. Yeah, no, it's an interesting dichotomy. And the people, like you say, that are oriented towards accounting, head down, get things done, love to mull through numbers, very thoughtful people, high tech knowledge, high technical capacity, knowledgeable, know rules, apply them, that kind of stuff, problem solvers, but not always, they know what they know. And sometimes it's just built in here. hard to get it out. I always think of the thing from Harry Potter, where he takes the memory out and he puts it in the thing in Dumbledore's office. I can't remember what it's called, but the little bowl, and he's like, takes the memory out and puts it in there. Like, that's what I need to do so that everybody has all that so that they can apply it and pull it out for themselves.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge because a lot of firms are people driven. The person was the king or the queen, created that thing, and everybody followed suit. And then how do they create the leverage? And then they got to get sold.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
And then they don't have a succession plan.
Well, and Sandra, apologies, I cut you off. So what, we're all waiting. What was kind of the answer to get them down from over 100?
They finally decided on entity tax, business tax, right? They said, we have a ton. And here's the best thing. They said they talked to their administrative department, the administration, and they said, as stuff is going through here, what do you think is the one thing that's just most broken? And they said entity tax, no question. They had a list of every partner in the firm and how they wanted, each one of them had a different process that they followed. So if that tax return came through and it was for, Mr. Smith, they followed this. If it was for Mr. Jones, they'd follow this. If it was for Ms., whatever, each one. And they said, if we could just have one way to work for all of them, it would save us hours. So that's the one they decided on, was entity tax. And it's probably the biggest broken one. So it's going to be a tough one. But yeah, that's that entity tax.
It's a data flow, though. How you adjust the information, you should be consistently getting it. Should be housed in a certain place, and then you put it together with your work papers consistently. And I think about even my time at the Big Four, like, we didn't have that. It was office by office. I mean, I travel around to different offices. I work nationally. I'm like, okay, this is the Arizona office. They have this. I'm like, this is not a firm. Yeah. This is a bunch of fiefdoms that rolled up under one brand. I'm like, okay, well, but it's good marketing. They've done very well by that. And other people, once they figure that out, they're like, I don't need to be here. I don't need these trappings. I can do it myself because this need is out there. And I'm being hamstruck by the bureaucracy of this very large organization that is a dinosaur and can't move. You can move. And that's why we have 46,000 CPA firms, or 45,996 or 5 CPA firms that are not Big Four.
Years ago, we called that, do you want to have a shared vision firm where everybody works the same, or a shared services firm where you're just all sharing office space, but everybody does their own thing? And, I can't tell you how many years ago that came up. And most firms will tell you, oh, we want a shared vision firm. But most people, a lot of the smaller firms act as a shared services firm. And so that's a good question to ask right away, is how do you function? The other thing I want to make sure that I throw in here, when we were talking about which processes we picked, and I said they went back to their administration group. Let me tell you something. You want to know how a firm really functions? And do you want to know where all the bodies are hid, right? Where they're buried? Go to your administrative professionals and talk to them. Get them to tell you the truth, because they see it all. They see how we treat clients. They see how we really act when the doors are closed. We see which one of the team members that are sitting around us are working super hard, and those that are kind of just hanging out. They know which partners are really forward-thinking partners, and they know which partners are just hanging out, waiting to retire. They know it all. Now, they don't always tell everybody, but they know it all. And I call them administrative professionals for a reason. I never want to go to a firm and hear, well, there's all the professionals. Oh, and then there's admin. When I say, how many full-time equivalents do you have? Well, we have 100. Oh, I guess we have like 20 administrative. Okay, they're professionals too. They may not have CPA behind their name, but they are professionals too. And you got to start treating them that way. So that's one of those on the bandwagon things that I
couldn't even agree more. Always. Yeah.
Well, and always hated that. Freaks out when someone's gone the most is when your administrative professional is not there.
I agree. We don't even know how to act when they're not there.
My leadership view is more egalitarian in general. Like, everybody's on the boat. Sometimes you got to captain it. Sometimes I'm down there cooking. I mean, sometimes I got to clean the toilets. I mean, just got to get it done. We're a team, Yeah.
Agreed.
So as we kind of wrap up, what would you leave what parting words do you have for our listeners? As a lot of them are, I think we just learned that some, shout out to our listeners at Loyola University, are
Law
kind of
students.
in this professional services space from like a lawyer, CPA. What would you leave, and partners and firms? So what would you leave them with?
I would leave them with this. I think we have an amazing profession here. I think that the accounting profession is on the brink of being one of the most important professions in our entire world. And I think that it is right in front of us to start developing and changing that business model so that we're much deeper and get there faster with our clients to be their advisors, to be their consultants, to be their partners in their businesses. And I think that there is a lot of young people out there that are intelligent, super intelligent, that are people focused, that have emotional intelligence, that are change agents, that are servant leaders. And we need to go into our high schools and our colleges and find the best of the best and help guide them into this profession. If you're sitting on the sidelines hoping that they'll show up someday, you're going to be sad. For all of you out there that are looking to get great people, go out and start mentoring and helping them choose this career. For anybody listening who is in college or is in high school and they're looking at what should I do? If I just described who you are or who you want to be, this is a profession for you. I guarantee you, this is the profession for you. So look at it with new glasses on. And like I said, I just think it's one of the most amazing professions. And I think that we are not giving ourselves enough credit. So go out and do good.
Well, thank you, Sandra, so much. I'm sure we could have just talked for hours and just chatted and shared stories and just, loved on the profession and the people connection. And so we thank you so much for your time and your expertise. And we look forward to staying connected. And this has been another episode of SALTovation. Till next time. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended, nor should it be relied upon as legal, tax, accounting, or investment advice. You should consult with a competent professional to discuss specifics of your situation and the applicability of the information presented.